preparing for this service, I read one of those headlines that said, "Oh, climate change, a burning world is within our view." And I thought, wow, basically all the headlines these days are about this disaster, which is within sight. It's coming really soon. And we don't spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that endings are always in sight, which is maybe why those headlines are so effective, because they get our attention. We go, oh my God, okay, I better buy the paper. Well, that's what that headline was designed to do, right? Sell paper. I have this app that I put on my phone that does that on a much more personal level. The app is called We Croak. Has anybody heard of it? It's not about frogs. It comes from a Bhutanese proverb that says, to be happy, contemplate your own death 5 times a day. So 5 times a day, at different intervals, unpredictable schedules, my phone buzzes, and a little notification comes across the screen, the same one you get that says, you have a meeting in 10 minutes, or you have a text message, and it says, don't forget, you're going to die. And I read these, and I think, yes, hopefully not soon, but this is the nature of things. Someday I will die. But that's not the whole truth of everything. Individual lives end, but our life as humanity goes on. Individual seasons change. Plants die and new plants sprout. Old animals die and new babies are born. So perhaps this app is really about remembering, what is my place in the great cycle of life? Letting me not be confused and think that, well, everything began when I was born and everything will end when I die. Well, obviously not. Many of you were here living lives before I was born, and we have today in this church children who will be living lives after most of us have died. So when we come to this place in the cycle of the year, this chance to think about what it means to be moving from winter to spring, from the direction of old age and the end of life to the direction of birth and childhood. This change from what looks like barren trees outside to the first stirrings of the sap that will lead to the spring leaves. It is important to think about what guidance that gives us in weathering the stress and the turmoil of the news or simply of our own lives. The word imbolc Jen shared with the children can mean in milk. There's also an old Gaelic translation that it means in the belly, that it is a reference to baby sheep and goats who are not yet born. And I find that particularly resonant because there are times in our lives when we feel like everything is very dark and constricted. We feel like we are perhaps trapped in a too small place, but perhaps we are simply preparing to be reborn into whatever is coming next for us. Perhaps our work in those times of dark closeness is to say, okay, this is where I am now. Can I rest here a little bit? Can I trust here a little bit that something else is coming for me, for those around me, for the world that I love? Is something else coming? It's not only the pagan and neo-pagan traditions that see this as a season of rebirth. This is also true in the Hindu tradition of Ayurvedic medicine. This season is referred to as kapha, the season of wet earth. Now, I come from Oregon, from the Willamette Valley, which is one of those broad river valleys with rich soil and mild winters and lots of rain all winter long, and lots of sheep out in the fields. So wet earth, pregnant sheep, these are very comfortable metaphors for me to attach to. But I look around here and I think, wet earth and sheep, maybe not so much. Maybe we are dealing with a different kind of winter here. Maybe the signs are buried a little bit deeper when we seek to access that wisdom of the natural world. It's not always right at the surface. The Ayurvedic teaching about kapha says that this is the time when nature slows down in preparation for rebirth in the spring. The energy of kapha is a combination of earth and water. It is cold, damp, wet, and when imbalanced can cause sluggishness. In Ayurveda, we move to opposites to create balance. So if you are feeling sluggish in this season, you need to create some internal heat. Turn metaphorically to the south. Eat foods that make you feel warm inside. Perhaps generate a little heat. Have you done this trick? Rub your hands together. You can join me if you feel moved. Rub your hands together. Get them good and warm. And then place them over your eyes. Can you feel that heat? Can you feel that promise of energy stirring? So this teaching reminds us that sometimes we have to create what is difficult for us to simply notice from the world around us. But we have that power. Imbolc, in the pagan tradition, is not only this time of new life, but it is also a time of intentionally creating warmth and fire. Sometimes these are purifying fires. Sometimes these are kindling candles, because in the Christian tradition, this time of year is also known as Candlemas. These are times as well for sweeping up your home with new brooms, clearing out that which is no longer serving you, making space for the new things that will come, which is not so unfamiliar. Do you do spring cleaning? No. Honesty, we speak truth together in this place. I don't do spring cleaning either, but I think about it every year. Perhaps I ought to, but it's more like summer cleaning.
We need to do it with lasagna dinner.
And we need to do some spring cleaning for the lasagna dinner. So Christina is on point for the rhythm of the church here, as well as the rhythm of the natural year. So it is this time of beginnings and of endings. What is being swept away? What is being moved away? And here we dance with Hinduism once again, because in the Hindu tradition, the goddess Kali is the goddess both of destruction and of motherly creation. She's often depicted with 4 arms, so that she has 4 hands, 2 hands of destruction and 2 hands of creation. In places around the world, these forces dance with each other, and we dance with them as well. As tempting as it is to be seduced by the sameness of modern life, where we don't notice the length of the day so much because we have electric lights, and we don't notice the temperature of the air so much because we have heating and air conditioning. And we don't notice the seasonality of the food because you can buy strawberries anytime you want at Stop and Shop. They flew a long way to get here, but you can buy them in January. This has not always been true. So lacking these ever-present markers of the seasons, sometimes we simply pause to remind ourselves of what has been true for so much of human history, and how these cycles have shown up in so many places and cultures. Because of course they show up in our own lives. Even if not in this month particularly, I am sure that in your life there are things that have ended and new things that have begun. I am sure there have been times when things felt very dark and small. And you weren't sure how to get to what is coming next. This poem from Mary Oliver reminds me how much there is that holds us in the status quo. It says, no, don't go forward into the new life. Stay the way it is. Don't make changes. And yet, there comes for each of us the time when we say, no, I must move out into what is new. I must do this, no matter how the old life grabs at my ankles and asks me to stay. And it reminds me that spring isn't all about flowers and mild weather and nice breezes. Spring is muddy, and it's messy, and it's really confusing. The weather gets warm and it gets cold again, and then there are storms, and then it's warm again. This is the work of change. So in this time of year, I invite you to join me in turning your attention to the cycle of the seasons, what you can rest in, what you can learn from. And in your pausing, try to notice what seeds are stirring within you, what new piece of life is preparing to come forth through you. Because there is something always preparing to come into the